So he was supposed to deter Russia, but instead of deterring Russia, he let Russia deter him. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Jens Stoltenberg. He's back in the news because he's working on his memoirs, and he's about to put his memoirs out. He's doing this media blitz. Okay, former NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg revealed in his memoirs that he feared his February 2022 call with Zelensky might be the Ukrainian president's last. We were all worried about that. We saw the Russian army bearing down on Kyiv, and we're like, oh no, what's going to happen to Zelensky? He's staying to fight. Okay. Feared it might be his last, but he refused to impose a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Zelensky called from a Kyiv bunker as Russian forces advanced on the capital, asking NATO to block Russian aircraft and drones. He accepted that NATO wouldn't send ground troops, even though he disagreed with the decision. And that's going to be interesting because I'm going to show you something about that in just a moment. He pointed to NATO's 1990 no-fly zone over Bosnia as a precedent. Stoltenberg told him enforcing a no-fly zone would risk full-scale war between NATO and Russia. He called the moment extremely painful, but he maintains the decision was correct. However, Stoltenberg acknowledged Western military support was too little too late. Well, duh, we're here, it's almost 4 years later. NATO's calculus in February 2022, alliance leaders feared escalation with Russia more than they feared Ukrainian defeat. That's exactly right. That's what happened, and that's why we are where we are. It's called deterrence, and Russia deterred NATO. Isn't that, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's what happened. The action of discouraging an action or event through instilling doubt or fear of the consequences. Putin deterred us. Okay, and where are we? Well, we're still feeling the impact of this. Well, in Ukraine, they're still feeling it. Russia's air superiority over Ukraine, evident in recent massive strikes on the country's energy infrastructure, is a stark warning to the free world. We have done far too little to help Ukraine in its fight against those who seek to dismantle the international order, because that's really what Russia's about, right? Tearing down the old international order and letting Russia run roughshod as Russia wants to run roughshod. Limited air defense systems delivered so far are simply not enough. The West must recognize that peace will not come until the aggressor is decisively defeated. Ukraine needs sustained support. Today, the coalition of the willing nations faces a clear choice: wait in vain for a ceasefire while watching the aggression continue, or step in to directly secure air defense. That's really what this amounts to. Okay, so Zelensky today, because of all the damage, not last night, but the night before, the lights went out during Zelensky's interview with The Guardian today. Should the lights go out, please? No, we are in control. Here's actually what's going on.
European leaders and the United States.
Let me put this on. He's talking and the lights go out. And they just keep carrying on. Now, listen to what they have to say.
Let's try. Just on the question of British troops on the border with Belarus. Because, you know, it seems to me we need some new thinking, right? Fresh thinking. Would you like that? British troops?
About this troop. First of all, we spoke about it with our colleagues, European leaders and the United States. We spoke about it during coalition.
Okay, so they're even talking about that, something that Stoltenberg wasn't even going to entertain. Okay, next story. About 300 employees of a nuclear facility in Russia, its Ulnovosk region, have gone on a massive strike because they're not paid any salary. Okay, at the moment, the salary delay has reached 2 months. Lunches have been canceled. There has been no food provided for a long time. As transport, we get to work on our own as best we can, the workers say. JSC Institute Uren Gostri is responsible for the construction of a research nuclear facility, and they're on strike because they're not being paid. At the end of September, Putin called this development revolutionary, claiming that 95% of spent fuel will be reused in multiple times in reactors. However, Russia prefers to spend its money on war and destruction. So, I mean, that'd be impressive if they could do that, but they're not paying the workers for this great technology. Anna from Ukraine is talking about it. We'll listen to her for about 30 seconds.
Hello, guys, and it's actually interesting because the protests keep growing inside Russia, where population describes itself as extremely apolitical. Unfortunately, these people do not stand for the end of the war or against the conscription, but they do react to the problems caused by the Kremlin's economic mismanagement and the failed blitzkrieg.
Yeah, so it's not that they're saying, hey, end this war, but they are saying, hey, we need to get paid. And it's the war that's causing them not to be paid, but they're not like connecting the dots. Okay, let's turn to the United States. Before I do, by the way, I gave a shout out to Joe Kane this morning. I think I was supposed to say Joe Young, an undergraduate YouTube member, for giving me a tip off about something. And Joe Kane is, he deserves a shout out as well. But Joe Young, that's who I was talking about, I'm pretty sure. So I'm just correcting the record. Okay, Trump nodded off during an event in the Oval Office. The incident took place on November 6th, sparked a wave of memes and comments on social media. At the same time, the White House denies that the president fell asleep at work. Why? I mean, I want to fall asleep in faculty meetings. I don't understand why it's a crime to have been bored. Ironically, Trump used to call his predecessor Sleepy Joe. In fact, this is 6 hours ago, November 9th. This was just, 7 hours ago now, November 9th. Sleepy Joe Biden was by far the worst president in American history, and he goes on and on from there. You know, maybe that's maybe not the best term to continue using, but hey, if you're bored, you're bored. I mean, that's just, I don't get it. Why deny it? Okay, Axios reports that U.S. arms deliveries to Ukraine have been temporarily halted due to the government shutdown. So there's a government shutdown in the United States. The Democrats and the Republicans can't agree. Both sides, both the Democrats and the Republicans, think that they're winning the PR campaign for the hearts and the minds of Americans with this. The Republicans think they look better. The Democrats think they look better. So that's why this is continuing. It's really stupid. So people are reporting to work, and government employees are, and not being paid for that. Like military or critical infrastructure. Imagine, like, you really don't want to have people that are, air traffic controllers being stressed because they can't pay their bills, but they have to be at work because, Okay. The delay affects AAM, missiles, Aegis systems, HIMARS, a disruption with serious implications. So weapon sales to NATO allies are being stalled by this as well. So that's what's going on here in the United States. And then we have some other interesting news, and this looks good, but it could be twisted. You got to be really careful. U.S. lawmakers launched new push for missing Ukrainian children and POWs. That's great, except I believe it's going to be used as a bargaining chip, from what I understand. Okay, I'll explain that in a second. A new bipartisan measure authorizes U.S. intelligence and legal assets to focus on retrieving POWs, civilian detainees, and forcibly transferred children. All good. But Putin sees these forcibly detained children as a bargaining chip in order to get some kind of concession from the West. And I think that's where we're going to be going. And the way that a similar path is this with Belarus. U.S. President Donald Trump has nominated White House Representative John Cole as a special envoy for Belarus. And they were talking about releasing 100 political prisoners and working on freeing another 50. But what will they get in return for that? What will Belarus get in return for it? Same kind of thing is going to happen with the POWs and children in Russia. So you got to be careful with that. Mike McFall says President Trump has not nominated a new U.S. ambassador for either Russia or Ukraine. He was sworn in on January 20th. It's now November. Like, what's going on there? You would think you'd put your best people in those particular positions, as this is so thorny, but we're just not doing it. Switching gears a little bit, we're talking about Pete Hegseth put this out just a couple of days ago. Another destruction of there's the speedboat, and this is down in Venezuela. He says to all narco terrorists who threaten our homeland, if you want to stay alive, stop trafficking drugs. If you keep trafficking deadly drugs, we will kill you. This is the 16th or 17th of these attacks on boats from Venezuela. And apparently Venezuela, I was talking to a student who's from Colombia who was telling me that apparently these are partly Colombian drugs flowing through Venezuela and out. Whatever. I don't know if that is necessarily the case. This is just one student's view of it. I warn Rubio and Trump to be careful, says the Colombian president, Gustavo Petro. He says the ancient jaguar will awaken if the golden eagle dares to attack the condor. What? What's he talking about? Well, okay. The ancient jaguar is referring to either to Venezuela or the local tribal kind of indigenous people. If the golden eagle dares to attack, golden eagle is the United States, dares to attack the condor, which I believe is Venezuela. But I warn Rubio and Trump, be careful. You are stepping into the land of Bolivar, where peasant armies with spears defeated mighty Spanish and French troops. The peoples of the Caribbean are used to hurricanes and they can summon another one. Earlier, Trump called Petro an illegal drug dealer, which, I mean, Colombia is probably far more about drug dealing than Venezuela, but okay. To which the Colombian president responded by comparing Colombia to David and America to Goliath, a foe that can be defeated. So, yeah, I mean, that's where we are. Now, I want to go back to the last video I just put out was about Russian propagandists and what they're saying, and it's some crazy stuff. So if you're interested in that, go back to see that. But then I saw this just after I released, and I was like, oh, and then I saw something else, and I'm going to show you that. After years of building a trusting audience, a fake Russian Telegram channel imitating Ukraine's 79th Brigade is now promoting the disinformation it was intended to. Part of the Ukraine.ru family of Russian disinformation outlets, this channel has almost the same level of subscribers as the real version. So what you see here is, see that little underscore as opposed to no underscore here? There's the real one and then there's the fake one. And yeah, that's so if you're telling the truth, you don't have to lie and deceive your audience in order to tell the truth. If you're trying to pretend to be somebody else, then you have to do that. Now, with that, I saw this, and I'm saying we have to be careful on the Western pro-Ukraine side as well. Now, Spravdi puts out some good stuff, but this little clip was, it brings into question what's going on. Okay, with the Putin regime guiding their population further into a state of genocidal frenzy, Russians no longer hide the fact that they intentionally targeting children is part of their military culture in Ukraine. Now, honestly, it really is. I mean, you see that kind of thing. And so you see this video where it says a sapper, he's saying, just needs imagination. Anything can be put together. We planted explosives in books. We planted explosives in toys. We scattered vapes with poison. We scattered the booby traps. Okay, so this is just an 8-second little clip of this Russian soldier being interviewed. And it seems a little off that he would just say something like that. Now, there is a pro-Russian site that came out with a larger version of the clip. Ukrainian propagandists are again posting conveniently edited version of a clip from a podcast with a Russian sapper, Yevgeny Telpenev, claiming that he admitted to committing a number of vile war crimes. In reality, however, he's talking about Ukrainians planting mines in books and children's toys. I don't know that that's really what he's doing either, including a real story where his colleagues found mined vapes with poison in the forest after retreating from Kherson, as well as drones covered in prussic acid. Okay, so here's the longer clip. We're going to play that. There's a story, maybe not even a story, that there was a little bell on a tree. One guy almost pulled it. Turned out it was a tripwire. You're walking through the forest, a bell on a tree. That's what I'm saying. A sapper just needs imagination. As long as there's imagination, you can make anything at all. The scariest one? Well, we didn't use hooks. What hooks? Nastiest tripwire on a hook. A fishing hook? A fishing hook. You set a mine, it doesn't matter on what. Tie a thread or fishing line to the pin, throw the line over a branch, and that's it. It hangs there. You won't see it. When a person walks, he just catches on that hook, it closed, backpack, whatever. You don't understand. You think it's a branch, so you pull even harder. That's when you pull the pin. Of course, they mine everything. Now, this is where we're starting to see like something from that clip. They being the Ukrainians, he's saying, mines everything. We never mined like books or toys. I don't remember that. And they did? Yeah, they mined books. they mined toys. The guys said that they found that in Kherson. Okay, so he's saying that he's heard from other Russians that they said that the Ukrainians did this. He didn't say he saw this with his own eyes. And so, okay, this is his testimony of what he's heard from other people. In the cities, when they pulled back from the other side of the river, that's when I just arrived. We were in Kherson. Okay, and so it's a different image of what they said that they did. Now, I don't necessarily believe that either. So I don't believe his testimony that they're mining books and toys, because the Ukrainians aren't trying to kill Ukrainian kids with that. But certainly somebody could have said that. But I'm showing you this to show you that, like, we have to be very careful with just we planted explosives in books, we planted explosives and we scattered it with, like, okay, we don't want to do that kind of thing either on this side of the information war or the information space. And we have to be careful and be honest. Okay, last little bit, Georgia. Georgia's almost it's almost a full year now into their protest. This is about a year from when the protests began, and they're still out in the streets. Good on them for doing what they're doing. Last little bit here, Jake Bros fundraiser. It was up to $779,000 yesterday. And now it is up to $838,000, $299.33 of $1 million target. I'll leave that down in the comments below, or first I'll pin it in the comments, and if you want to give to that. Thank you, my friends, for your time. Thank you for listening to me this long. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for the likes. That helps the video spread. And if you're not subscribed, somebody told me the other day that they were the subscription was gone for some weird reason. So check to see if you're subscribed. Thank you for that. And thank you for being the kind of person who cares about Ukraine.